Hey everyone, and welcome to week 14 of class. I hope you guys are doing well. This week we're going to dive into a war that is very much connected to the Cold War, which we began earlier in this semester. And one of the things I had mentioned about the Cold War is that even though it's cold between the Soviet Union and the United States, in that we never actually go to violence with one another, there were moments when the Cold War definitely heated up and exploded into violence. The Korean War, for example, which we mentioned last week briefly in 1950 to 1953, is an example where the Cold War really heated up because the Korean conflict was one in which the United States was fighting North Korea in order to contain communism. You see, our foreign policy of containment and to keep communism from spreading meant that we had to get involved in Korea. And the reality is, for Harry Truman, that once China fell to communism, and the question was, who let China fall? Once North Korea, moves past the parallel line, Harry Truman very much feels obligated to get involved militarily in order to keep the communists from infiltrating South Korea. And of course, in the end, really nothing came of it because all we did was get the North Korean communists back across the parallel line, and we ended right where we started. So that is an example of where the Cold War really heated up. But this week, we're going to look at perhaps a more complicated conflict, and that is the Vietnam War. Very similar sort of situation. You've got a parallel line, 17th parallel, where North Vietnam, due to various circumstances, is given over to the communists, and South Vietnam is given over to non-communist forces. The United States will support South Vietnam, even though its leader Diem is incredibly corrupt and problematic. We'll talk all about that in the lecture this week, but in the end, you have Vietnamese forces that will cross the 17th parallel line, or there's an attempt to reunify Vietnam, and the United States will commit itself to arms in Vietnam. And basically, really from the end of 1945 all the way up to 71, 73 actually, when the United States finally pulls out of Vietnam, the United States has an interest in having to deal with Vietnam, although mass number of troops do not get sent to Vietnam until after Kennedy's assassination in '63. But again, we'll talk all about that. But just recognize that this conflict is an example of where the Cold War heats up. And it's also very conflicting sort of, war. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here. Because it's still fairly fresh. There's a lot of Vietnam War vets that are still around. It was a very unpopular conflict. There were a whole range of atrocities that took place on both sides, the United States and the Vietnamese. And the question that, we sort of have to ask ourselves is, did we really win this war? And most historians say, no, we did not. But I'll leave that up for you to decide. But anyways, that's what we're going to be looking at. We're not going to get into too much of the military, the nitty-gritty kind of battles. There are a couple we will mention, such as the Tet Offensive and the fall of the French at Dien Bien Phu. But other than that, we're really going to sort of look at the home front and the anti-war movement and the protests and the politics behind it. And so, of course, you have your discussion board this week, so make sure that you get that going. And other than that, you just have your second PowerPoint assignment that you're going to want to work on, and I would encourage you to begin doing that. And if you have questions on it or anywhere else, feel free to contact me. And that's all we've got going on for this week. But before I let you go, I want to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. I know that next week that's what we got going on. So enjoy that time and eat all the turkey and the pumpkin pie that you can. So with that, if you have questions, contact me. Otherwise, go in peace, be warm and filled. May the force be with you. Live long and prosper. May the odds forever be in your favor. Have a great week, guys.